Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about the wonderful theory of white privilege. This is a topic that many people I know might say I'm not allowed to speak about since I am white. I could have chosen to start by voicing my insignificant opinions on something that wouldn't be coming from such a privileged point of view. Maybe I could say more without getting despised by random people. But what the hell. I'll start out with something confrontational as shit. I welcome confrontation, because discussing issues with someone you disagree with isn't a bad thing. I chose to respond to this video as opposed to one of the many videos out there today that are just so blatantly racist, because I want to point out some things that I'm more likely to see in my day-to-day life, and the argument of white privilege is definitely one of those things. I'm honestly amazed by how many people around me really believe that white privilege is so prevalent in this society. I'd say I'm definitely in the minority with the opinion that it isn't, and I think videos like this make it a lot easier to indoctrinate people. They're more likely to hear it and just trust what she's saying is all true because of the type of setting and the way that it's presented.
Woo!
Woo!
That paints a very different picture, but that is reality. That is the truth of who I am, and I am nothing without my failures. It's part of my invisible diversity.
She gave a little intro before this, but I'm going to be cutting out a lot of clips from this video, so if you want to see the whole thing, I'm going to put a link in the description. But it seems like all I ever hear about lately is diversity, but yes, diversity of all types, skin color, character, and ideas is good.
So I was frustrated that some people in our society had more privilege than I did. I was frustrated that when I walked into a job interview, I had to deal with the stereotypes and assumptions that other people had of me before I even walked in the door.
What is it with you people and stereotypes? A lot of you guys seem to think that stereotypes are the biggest deal in the world and that it governs everything. But the truth is, everyone has to deal with stereotypes and assumptions. There's not a single person who doesn't have some kind of stereotype correlated with them. Most people don't take stereotypes too seriously, as they shouldn't, because we're all individuals and people realize that. But stereotypes actually aren't just the evil white man's way of dividing and discriminating against people. They actually come from a survival instinct. It was part of survival of the fittest. It made sense biologically for animals and humans to categorize creatures based off of the immediate information available to them, which would be just by looking at them. They do this so that they can quickly prepare for what they're about to deal with. When there is an action that has previously been done more in one group than it has another, our minds have kind of evolved to associate that action with that group. I'm not saying we should just give in to every primal instinct that we have because we can be smarter, but it isn't something we tend to do just because we're all racist. It doesn't mean that every person of that kind does that action, but when there has been extremely disproportionate numbers of something being done more in one group, for example, crime, it makes sense that you might have a small thought in the back of your head to be a little extra cautious because you need to protect yourself. Looks is the quickest way that we can identify it. Yes, I'll give it to you that only idiots would use it as a completely factual judgment of people based off first glance, but I don't see many people who take them that seriously. The system should treat people as individuals, and everyone should be held accountable for their actions by the same standards, and under the law, it does. So where's the problem? And I'm rambling, but also, that is the purpose of interviews for anyone, for them to see who you are and for you to prove to them that you're qualified for the job. Try having the attitude of, I know who I am and I'm not going to shackle myself to my stereotype, and I'll work hard to be the person I want to be. If you do that, most people won't think of you as a stereotype. Try teaching people to be more confident in who they are, instead of teaching them to fall victim to everything or any assumption that they think someone might have of them. And if you think we should be so fragile that we can't handle something as minuscule as a stereotype, then this really is the pussy generation. I agree with you, Clint Eastwood.
That I had to work twice as hard to be seen as equally competent.
What do you mean you had to work twice as hard? Do you have an example? A claim like that needs a specific example so we can look at the instance to determine what needs to change to make it equal. But without an example, this isn't a good point.
That when I travel Airport security searches through my hair.
I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure there's not two lines in airports segregating the black people weave check line from the white line that just lets them go right through. They check hair like yours because it's big and thick enough that someone could possibly hide something in. If a white person had the same hairdo, they'd do the same to them.
I was frustrated that our society has bought into a belief system that some human beings have more value than others.
I'm sorry, but where is this belief system you speak of? Because I know it's not America. A few individuals might have an opinion that a certain race makes someone better, but the system does not. The majority are not racist here. And even the people who actually are racist, we can't criminalize them for their thoughts or opinions, for hate speech. Shouldn't we let people be free to think what they want, even if you know they're wrong, as long as they aren't hurting anyone and are open to criticism and disagreement?
That some people are perceived as more intelligent than others simply because they have a different skin color.
Again, each individual has the same freedoms. Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of the most famous scientists right now, and he achieved that by devoting many years of his life to accumulating knowledge about something that fascinates him, and that's awesome. Nothing stopped him from doing that, not even white privilege, because it doesn't exist. I am a big fan of his, though. I really enjoy his lectures and the show that he stars in, Cosmos. It's really informative and has cute animations of some historical events relating to the science that they're talking about, and it's really good. Go watch it. Not trying to virtue signal here, I just really like him.
Or that some people are seen as more natural leaders because of their height or their gender. I mean, come on.
The quick explanation for this is that men and women are different. I know it's crazy, but our brains are different as well. Just because more men may be inclined to want and choose leadership positions does not mean there's anything holding women back from doing the same.
The more I thought about what other people thought of me and what other people had done to me, the less I was able to believe in my full potential. And that's one of the problems with privilege.
Then don't worry about what other people think of you. That has nothing to do with privilege.
So I have other relatives who survived the odds despite all of the things that were sort of working against them. A gentleman by the name of John Groves was a literate Virginia slave. He was my great-great-grandfather, and he joined the Union Army when the troops marched through the South. Literacy was a privilege during slavery, and my family only had it because John's white father was also his owner, and he chose to educate his half-black son. A white slave master used his privilege to break the law and help mitigate the effects of racism on his offspring because he knew that his skin color would be a liability for the rest of his life. That one small act of sharing privilege helped me land on this stage generations later.
I wanted to point out that in the early 1900s, times were very different. Perhaps back then, using his privilege did open some doors for equality, and yes, it sucks that there wasn't always equality. But I do know that white people are not the only group that has ever oppressed others throughout history. But looking at the title of this and listening to what you're saying, I think the main point you're trying to make with this speech is that white people or men or whoever you think has this magical privilege need to use their privilege to create equality for the non-privileged group. But you're using an example from about 100 years ago and trying to compare it to how privileged people need to act today. The discrepancy there is that in the present, it's not that black and white. We are now equal under the law, and people can't possess other humans anymore or stop them from doing what they want with their life. Yes, certain people are born into wealthy households and get things handed to them, while others don't and will have to work harder to get by. But that's just life. With equal opportunity, there will not always be equal outcome for every gender, ethnicity, or race, but each individual has the same rights, so what is it that white people could do now for them without giving them special treatment? Do you think that we're discriminating against men since they make up the large majority of the prison population? Of course you don't. It's because of their actions that they are in there. There's not all these black people in prison for no reason, just for being black. Christians, Hindus, and Jews are the wealthiest religions in the US right now. I ask you, is this because of religious discrimination? Does this mean Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, Mormons, and unaffiliated groups are being oppressed? It must be Jewish privilege or Christian privilege, right? No other explanation possible. Also, that story reminds me of an incredible movie from my favorite movie writer slash director ever, Quentin Tarantino. But that made me think about how, even in current year, we can't just watch a cinematic masterpiece like Django Unchained with anyone and just enjoy the entertainment from a movie that has elements of brutal, bloody events that have happened way in the past. And it actually has a really good story about a black slave overpowering his white owners. I've actually heard people today that will see that and relate it to themselves now somehow. They'll find a way to see white people around them today as those slave owners, even though white people today have nothing to do with it whatsoever. How would you like it if someone tried to blame you for something that you weren't even alive for and had nothing to do with? I don't think you'd like it very much.
Not you, Stephen. You right where you belong. Cora, before you go, will you tell Miss Laura goodbye?
Do what now?
I said tell Miss Laura goodbye.
Bye, Miss Laura.
I changed my frame by telling Mackie Walker's story and by learning about the obstacles that my family overcame. And in doing so, I was able to see some things that I had been missing that were right in front of me. I was so fixated on the privilege that I didn't have that I missed much of the privilege that I do have. I missed the fact that being an Army brat and having international experience and being multilingual and having a great education and a mom with a PhD and a dad with an MD all gave me plenty of opportunities for success. And that's one of the traps our society lays for us. We think of privilege as something that you either have or you don't have.
Right, so why are you trying to say that being white or male inherently makes you privileged? Don't you see how a white person could have just as easily not been born into those same lucky opportunities you had as a black person could have? When it comes down to it, the only privilege is wealth and what you're born into. But to say that you can make the assumption of whether or not a person is privileged by merely looking at their gender or skin color would be making a stereotype or assumption based off gender or skin color, which I believe you said earlier you didn't like, right?
And privilege can blind those of us who have it. At least that's what my husband tells me. My husband is a white male heterosexual Christian who grew up in a wealthy suburb with a great public school system. That guy had a lot of privilege. And what he tells me is that some people who have privilege can't even see it. Some don't even want to acknowledge that it exists, because why should they? You don't need to see it to survive if you have enough of it. But the thing is, if you excelled in college, were offered a great job, and are working your way up towards that corner office, then the idea that even a small amount of your privilege might have come from the fact that you have a certain skin color or a certain gender or were born in a certain country, that might shed a little bit of doubt on the cause of your success, and that's a difficult pill to swallow.
Dude, one minute you say you've been given all these privileges and you have all these opportunities, and then you say that being black or being female makes you not privileged. Which one is it? You just said they worked hard in college to get that, so shouldn't that be the end of it since everyone is free to do that?
So I know that a lot of the Gen Xers and millennials have a hard time understanding why we're still focusing on diversity, because guys, things are so much better now, and it's true. They really are so much better. We only read about the horrors that surrounded the civil rights movement. We don't have to live through them.
At least she admits that.
We are very passionate about making the world a better place. And we can't do that if we don't deal with the legacy of diversity and understand how decades of institutional bias continue to affect our society in ways that benefit some people more than others. Whether we like it or not, whether we did it on purpose or not, The fact of the matter is, white families still have 6 times the wealth of Black and Latino families, and that gap is getting wider. It's not getting better. The Great Recession had a much larger impact on Hispanic and Black and workers than it did on white workers. We have mountains of literature that tell us that men and women are still being treated differently in the workplace, from income disparities to board representation.
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
The problem here is that the world is simply not that simple. The world is full of so many factors and nuances that play into why things are the way they are. You look at the fact that certain groups have more wealthy people in them than others and assume that it's because of discrimination. Now, we could do that, and we could go burn down gas stations, loot small businesses, vandalize random people's cars and property, demand that taxes get raised for white people who earn more money than you because you want some of that money.
Area, and to watch your neighborhood go through this right now, just tell us what's going through your mind.
It's sad because this will happen because they're not helping the Black community. Like the rich people, they got all this money and they're not trying to give us none. It's sad. It's like and police, it's crazy. It's just
Kick over a homeless white man, murder innocent police officers, or call for the death of white babies and all white people. But if by some off chance those things don't work, the suggestion I have is to open your mind a little. Use your critical thinking skills when a problem is presented to you to ask yourself some questions and try to figure out why. Maybe it could be something that more people in those poorer groups are doing. Maybe there are decisions that more people in those groups make than white people on average that affect their wealth. There are different reasons why, but in order to fix a problem, we need to be honest about why it's happening. The only way to lower the number deficit of issues like crime or wealth is if those groups start making different decisions for themselves. But white people can't use their privilege by forcing more Black people against their will to make different life decisions, because that wouldn't be freedom. Just like we can't force women to go into higher paying fields that they didn't choose on their own just to fix the wage gap. And I don't believe quotas or reparations should be the answer either, because that would not be meritocracy and it would not be equality. I know what I'm saying is disgusting, and I'm pretty much equal to Hitler as a terrible person to many people I know for what I just said. That everyone should be equal and held to the same standards. I'm just fucking racist. Which is really sad, because that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think racism and prejudice is ridiculous and wrong, and I don't get why I have to explain that. And any person who ever attempts to deviate from a certain person's mindset whatsoever is labeled a racist. Do you people realize how fucked up that actually is? People like me have a problem with being called racist because we know that we're not and we think racism is wrong. But no, you guys try to make that into a bad thing, a racist thing as well. Of course it is, right, Cenk?
I predicted it. I was like, let's look into this because I bet that I would be surprised if people didn't take this in a racist direction. And of course they did. Which, by the way, is another form of racism, right?
I'm tired of seeing the good old, if someone says, I'm not racist, but, that probably means they're racist. No, maybe it's because they have to be afraid that people like you are going to call them a racist simply for attempting to question anything you say.
I'm telling you all of this because race still matters. Gender still matters. Society still suffers from the fallacy of the hierarchy of human value. Privilege still dictates who gets job interviews, who gets hired, and who gets promoted. So for those of us who want to make the world a better place, we simply cannot achieve that without dealing with the legacy of diversity and privilege.
These theories that people like to throw around, like white privilege, systematic racism, or sexism, I kind of feel for some reason like it helps create more people like this cunt.
Why do white people have a right to affirm their life?
Because all lives have value.
Really? How so? Why does white life have value?
Well, I think my
For
life
who?
has
White?
value.
No, excuse me. For who? Our argument is that white life is wrong.
Why?
Your argument is that white life is wrong. You know, I never thought about it that way. You might have a point there. You know, at first I thought you were just being a cranky racist asshole, but you provided a really sound argument there for me. You convinced me. Good job.
Our argument is that we should never affirm white life. That your argument of just affirming all life in general is not good, especially not good for black people when white life itself is based off of black
why shouldn't we affirm
civilization.
my life?
You're probably white.
I am white. Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
I don't understand why I have to care about your life anyways. There's no ethical reason as to why white people deserve to live. Affirming black life means that white death has to occur. That's why you should lose this debate and why your life ain't worth affirming.
Can I kill myself, like, under your arguments?
Sure.
Okay. So, should Odie kill himself?
I don't see why not.
Why? Why should we do that? How does that help?
It's ethical.
How is it ethical? We all have some form or another of privilege. Why does that mean we should kill ourselves?
Because you have white privilege.
Why does...
Yeah, obviously this kid is fucking insane and extremely racist. I applaud the kids who were debating him on it because they really held it together very well and explained why he's wrong without being racist back. These things sadden me because I don't think he was born with such an animosity for another race. I think a lot of people like this got lies and exaggerations pounded into their heads so much that they eventually believed them to be true. If you're in an environment where you're constantly hearing how white people are privileged, the system doesn't like you, the country you live in is oppressive to you, racism is so rampant, you can't achieve anything you want because the system is holding you back. Do you really think that's going to help the problem you claim to be fighting for? How about try telling them that they are just as free as everyone else and have the ability to become whoever they want to be? The more people hear about things like race and gender as if those are the most important things about a person, the more divided we will be and the less you relate yourself to others because you've got this dogmatic bullshit mindset clouding your ability to not be racist. I believe that we should judge people by their merit of character and actions rather than the other unimportant traits that yins won't shut up about. I just hate Black Lives Matter and all this racial bullshit going on so much. You have no idea. Sheriff Clark is an awesome police officer, and he has some interesting things to say about Black Lives Matter, so I'd recommend that you check him out. It's pretty ridiculous how much they've been taking advantage of words like white privilege, racism, sexism, discrimination, Islamophobia to push their agenda and what they want you to feel guilty for, and just to get whatever they want, basically. Like money or for you to vote for who they want, or else you're just a fucking racist. This is a pretty pathetic guilt trip tactic, in my opinion. Don't let them get to you. Even third-party voting is white privilege now. Did you know that, guys? This just in. Third-party voting is now the height of white privilege. So always remember, if you don't listen to them, it's only because you're a bigot. Anyone of any color is allowed to vote for whoever they want. But nope, something that is literally the same for everyone is somehow white privilege. I will be putting a link to that article in the description as well, in case you want to soak up the crazy. I think that's most of what I wanted to say. I could go on forever about this subject, and I pretty much have, because it's just a topic that I see so much in my real life and on social media, and it saddens me how much this social justice divides and indoctrinates people. If you have an issue with anything I said, please leave a comment, or if you just want to add something to the discussion. I'm going to try to make more videos. I'm not sure exactly when the next one will be because I am studying for some tests right now, but I will as soon as I can. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye!